Welcome back to the Spa Sisters podcast with myself, Carly Chamberlain, and the wonderful Julie Wren. We are here to engage, disrupt, and transform the therapist experience, bringing voices together from the world of spa. So, hi, Julie, how are you today?
Hi, Carly. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. It's a bit windy outside, but
not so good weather.
Great for disrupting things, the wind.
Indeed.
Sometimes things need to be shifted and moved through the forces of nature in order to make change. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Things never stand still.
Exactly. Our podcast today, if you're listening in, our topic is called The Girl Next Door, or The Boy Next Door, or They Next Door, whoever you are in the spa world. And we are looking at what it's like behind those four walls in your treatment room, what's going on in your mind, how are you reacting and engaging with other team members, and where are you today? Like, where's your head at? You know, are you listening to this podcast in the car on the way to work, on the way home after a 9-hour shift with a 5-minute turnaround, or hopefully 15-minute turnaround?
2020.
In Julie's case, 20-minute turnarounds is the way forward. Do you want to have a little bit more of a discussion about that, Julie, whilst we're on the topic?
No, I think I'm going to leave that one for a bit later. I think there was already probably 3 people having a few heart palpitations last week. So let's leave that one for another episode.
We don't want to scare people off.
Absolutely not.
So over to you, Julie. Let's talk about therapists, what's happening in their heads. We've heard from a lot of therapists. We've worked with a lot of therapists. People share their worries and concerns with us an awful lot, being spa educators. What have you got to say on this matter?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about setting your day up. How do you start your day? Are you setting yourself up for a really good day? What is your intention? Because sometimes, I am the worst one for this. I'm always running last minute, but that doesn't really sort of get you in the right frame of mind, I think, to start your day in a really great way. Are you running so fast that you forget to eat breakfast? Because obviously that, again, is going to affect your performance. What are you eating? That's going to affect your performance. How you react as well can actually be triggered by what you eat, because, we make sometimes those very snap reactions without actually stopping to think about how we're reacting. Is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate to that situation? Because we're leading such a fast life that we're doing, and we have very little time in our day to actually be and to take stock. So how do we build that into our spa day so that we have, let's say, appropriate reactions to things that are going on? Because let's face it, it's tough in there. We know what it's like behind those walls. Somebody has a short word with you, they tell you something, and they think that you've actually registered and understood it. But maybe you are the kind of person like me who has to be told things quite a few times, because I can't take all that information in. Don't stack information for me. Give it to me in something that I can actually deal with. But don't assume just because you said it that it's going to get done. Because if I haven't actually understood it, then that's going to cause me anxiety. So there's quite a lot of those dynamics that I think that really have an important part to play in how successful a day can be.
Yeah. On that point, something that I notice a lot, and I'm very much aligned with, is letting your emotions drive your actions.
Yeah.
So that emotive behavior is something I think we can all relate to. We are very sensitive beings, and therapists are in tune with those emotions, which can be roller coaster emotions throughout your day. And often when you're in a room and working on someone, doing your treatment, you are also in your headspace an awful lot. And so we pick up on the minutest sort of details and vibes, and we can take those things to heart. And what might have been a passing comment from a guest or an instruction from a spa manager. If you've just been in a deep place for an hour in silence in your head doing your job, it's very hard to remove yourself from that space and come back into the physical world and think rationally about whatever you've been exposed to.
And vice versa, Carly, because actually you can walk into a treatment room carrying a remark that person, they've given it, they think of it as a throwaway remark, but you're carrying that with you into the treatment room. And if you're running over it in your mind, that's going to be coming through your hands into your treatment. So it's a duality there to that.
Yeah, and actually, I speak about this a lot in my book as well, about when you're in a treatment room with someone, it's a two-way street. So gone are the days where I think a guest comes in, is completely passive, and you are just doing and giving and going through the motions of your sequence or your routine. We know communication is everything. And even communication without the spoken word is powerful. So how can you have an amazing experience and an amazing treatment by giving it? And how can they receive an amazing treatment without being completely passive to it? And that's so important, because you don't feel like, you're just constantly servicing without any return in a way. You're actually connecting to a soul and a person and tuning into their very needs. Yes, you've got a protocol to work towards, and you might have your cue cards there and you're going through it. But how can you get to that place where actually you see that person, human to human, not so much therapist to guest or client? So yeah, reactions. What kind of experience have you had with therapists, or feedback you've had from therapists about the dynamics in their day and how they react?
Yeah, I think, also there comes down to that willingness to want to make the connection. Because if you yourself are feeling really tired or you're not in that right space, it's harder to make that connection. Or you have a history with that client, for example, it's not been such a positive relationship. You kind of almost sometimes come into it from a sort of, oh gosh, it's Mr. or Mrs. X again. They're a very demanding client, or they never seem to enjoy their treatment. How do I put them in the right space? And I sometimes think that's also because we perhaps judge a client as they walk in the door and automatically assume that's the way that they are, or that's the way they're feeling, but not understanding what's going on for them. And it's not our job. We're not in that therapeutic space to be like a counselor, but at the same time,
that's debatable.
I know, but you need to stay within our, let's say, within our training, as it were. But it's very true that I find that when a client walks through the door, or a therapist is having a difficulty, it's that moment of, what space am I in? What am I projecting, to be able to like cut that, if you like, and almost like neutralize that possible problem area where I can't connect with my client, where I'm not able to make that physical connection. And I actually go back to one very strong story that I always tell, is that a woman came into one of my own treatment rooms, and she was like very, very strong, and things had to happen, and her whole energy was about now, get on with it. But I that wasn't my energy, and I just literally got her on the bed and left her there, probably what seemed to her like forever. Is she ever going to start the massage? But I just needed to give myself and that client the time to actually calm down. And I said, sometimes that's all it needs, is for you to ground yourself, for you to just to lay your hands and have that really positive thought that the intention that you're going to give the best treatment you can, and whatever's going on for the person lying down here, it's okay, but I'm here to give you the best of me.
Yes, and that comes down to that element of self-responsibility, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Not letting whatever's happening for them or your colleague impact the choice you've made that day to be that pillar of positivity or good intention for the rest of your day.
Yeah, those four walls that you talked about at the beginning it's your space. You're in that treatment room for that particular time, but it's your space, and it's the energy that you can create in that space that is going to be positive for you and the client. So, it's kind of like, what am I leaving at the door, at the therapy door? And what am I bringing into the therapy room?
Absolutely. And how, also just on that note, you've reminded me recently when I was training, we had a conversation with the team about, I went into my room and like my mitts were gone. My mitts were gone and the floor was dirty. And that really, when I hear that, I think that's a very sort of basic, simple problem. But for a therapist, like you say, who's creating a space and has been told that room is hers for the day, there is an element of people will need to come in and out of your space. How do you deal with that? Because it can get quite personal. It's almost very protective. Do you feel like therapists are really grasping on to some level of space that they can keep protected, because the spa is so fluid all the time? It's like tornadoes. There was a documentary on a few years ago about the behind the scenes at the spa, and forward facing, you have to be completely composed, and we know that behind those doors sometimes it's not easy to create a lovely sacred space for your guest. It's a tornado flooding through those corridors. How do we cope with that? How do therapists react to that? Is it about their, like you say, setting your intention, having your self-responsibility, but what's the trigger? There will be a trigger. How do you manage your trigger?
As an individual, I think you as a therapist have we can also lead by example.
Absolutely.
And say, what is an appropriate reaction? Appropriate reaction, say, come on, this is not right. This is not as it should be, and having those open and honest conversations with a colleague to say, come on, okay, what's going on for you today? My treatment room, I was expecting it to be like this, and it wasn't. And it's kind of like having the confidence, but also having that permission, if you like, between yourselves as a group of young therapists to say, we should be able to say when it's not right and when it is, it needs to be changed. So that we don't start having these and creating like tensions in the team, which then the spa manager has to then deal with.
So let's strip this back then. So this is about reactive behavior. What causes that? You mentioned before we came on live, anger. Why would you be angry, for example? Why are you irritated that day? There's many reasons why. You mentioned nutrition. What have you eaten that morning? Is your blood sugar fundamentally balanced that morning? I have a wonderful saying that my brother heard from another friend. I love the way that these things evolve, but it's a great technique which you can remind yourself of when you feel yourself being triggered, and that is the term HALT. HALT. Hungry. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And regardless if you're a therapist or not, HALT is something I use every day now. If I can feel myself getting irritated and sort of the mechanics of the human brain start kicking in, and we get very much on our, routine and habitual patterns. We all are prone to these, habitual patterns that aren't necessarily helpful to our lives and our growth generally as human beings. So HALT, I find such a great thing to stop you in your tracks. HALT. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Probably a combination of all some days,
Yeah.
then you sort of think, oh, hang on a minute, do I really need to let myself get this het up that my mitts have gone? It's mitts. It's a bit of a dusty floor. Let's take some self-responsibility, get things in perspective, not to devalue people's worries and concerns, because if this is happening constantly and repetitively, there's another thing we need to strip back there. It's that direct communication, having the confidence to openly communicate your concerns with your colleagues or your manager. Everyone's feelings should be valued, and that's something also to take into consideration. But where do you draw the line? Where are the boundaries? Do we know we're throwing our toys out the cot a little bit and we're just doing it because we want to create a bit of drama that day? Let's just scrap all that and actually give ourselves the opportunity perhaps to work from a heart-centered place, which is so relieving over all that sort of drama. But that takes time, I think, doesn't it?
It does. But I think I love that whole idea of saying to yourself, okay, halt, and give yourself those 5 seconds before you actually do anything else. And that's the key thing, is that window of opportunity. And I think I heard it somewhere recently that it is just 5 seconds that you've got to make that could really change the way that you behave in the next so many minutes. But just having that say halt and take 5 seconds to think, where am I on that scale? Because most of the time, I can be honest and say that hangry, I live with a hangry man. If I don't feed him on time, he's like a bear in a cage. So, I know how food can be very, very, some people seem to go like the whole day without eating something. Not that it's good for them, but at the same time, there are other people that need to have something regularly to eat because that's the way that they are built. And being hangry can often make you reach for something that is sugary, that will give you that instant hit of energy, but you're going to crash and burn a few hours later as you've been, you're sending your blood sugar on a roller coaster. Combine that with stress, and you're not doing your body any favors whatsoever. So, again, we can even say, like, how do we keep our mood even throughout the day by choosing the right things to eat?
And that's this hangry strap line is more and more common nowadays. I've been hearing hangry quite a lot in the last couple of years, and it's just so great, isn't it, that we can now suddenly go, oh my gosh, it could be that simple. It's blood sugar, mood levels, energy. Think of how many arguments could be eradicated if we just accept that we need to fill up our tank with some good stuff. Imagine how many divorces that have happened through hangry. Imagine how many broken friendships have happened through hangry. And when you call it hangry, it seems so simple, such a simple thing that we can fix.
Absolutely.
Not that I'm not, devaluing. There's obviously layers and layers.
Constantly find yourself being hangry, and you're not getting the result you want, then stop eating the way you're eating and go and look for something that's going to actually help you on that. Because that's another thing, isn't it? If we keep on getting the same results and we don't change anything, then something we're doing or some way we're behaving probably needs to change. If we're honest,
it can be really
honest
hard.
about that.
It can be really challenging for people to look in the mirror and face themselves and take responsibility and action for their own behaviors. And I think, again, in the spa environment, it's a perfect environment to, he said, she said, blame game, this, that, and the other. And what I'm passionate about, and I know you're passionate about, is creating spa environments that are walking the walk. If we are creating a space for people to come and have a wellness experience now, we know wellness is a huge trend, but what is a wellness experience? Well, in my book, a wellness, not the book I wrote, in my values, a wellness experience can only be received from someone, like you said, who is living it. So I think we are starting to see a huge shift in the way we train our therapists.
Yeah.
Because it's the therapists, they are the key to everything. And we need to value our therapists, respect our therapists, and give them the tools and the understanding for their own self-growth and self-discovery, because they are the key to
Absolutely
your guest having an incredible experience, your revenue going up, all these things which are helpful for everyone concerned. But touching upon just what you said there at the end about hangry, I think that's another conversation we're going to be having, how our reactive behaviors impact our work, and also how that plays a big role in our mental health. Have you got anything else to add, Julie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking your other two, lonely and tired as well. I mean, when you feel, I think particularly now when we've been deprived of touch ourselves, of being able to hug, how sometimes is it nice to just have a bit of a hug out?
Oh, I love a hug.
A hug out. I mean, on a training, this is one of the big things that I always like to try to create, is to create those mindful moments, or those moments where we get to connect again. We get to connect with colleagues.
Yeah.
So because we run around so much, I think, when you're in the training, you get to work on a colleague, you get to show your respect and your touch. And I'm very big on that, in treat your colleague like you're treating the client. Give her the best possible treatment in the training. So when you have that opportunity to do that, to practice on each other in the spa, you can have a bit of fun, but at the same time, it's a great way to make that connection. And to build those connections at work. Because I think, like for me, it's food and the way that we can be with each other in terms of touch, or break down barriers.
Absolutely. Oh,
yeah.
And that's why, I know a lot of therapists, when I ask them the why, going back to the why, why are you a therapist? Because I love helping people, because I love making people feel good, because I want to connect with them. So we need to bring people back to that simplistic reasons why we are therapists, because they're all those things are still there. If you're feeling resentful today, or tired, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, let's bring it back and simplify everything again. We do overcomplicate. I think we all have a tendency to do that when we live in a super cerebral world, and we overcomplicate things. But as a therapist, we need to really connect with ourselves, get back in touch with that simplicity of why we do what we do, looking at other people as humans with a backstory equally as valuable as our backstory, and having that compassion.
Yeah,
compassion is
for
key.
sure. I'm a great advocate as well of the campfire. When you have an opportunity just to sit down round the fire, as it were, usually it's a candle or a fake candle if you're in a spa where you can't have a real candle, but just having the opportunity to sit in a circle and to have a conversation. And when there are perhaps issues, a little campfire session is never a bad thing. In fact, you can set a campfire up session wherever you are, really, if you want to grab a few colleagues together and sit around and say, feeling a bit today, rising tide and all that, lifting all boats.
Yeah, good point though, because who's going to be the therapist today who's listening, who is going to bring their colleagues into their sacred treatment room space for the campfire? Who will be that therapist? Who's the therapist in your spa that will always welcome people into their room? And
wonderful.
that is a very lovely way to end this podcast today. Please get in touch with us at Spa Sisters Podcast. Our email is spasisterspodcast@gmail.com. And we are loving the interest we're getting. I've had a lot of therapists from my recent training, so I've been sort of hinting at this new platform that we're creating, and they're really keen to get involved. I've had some messages on Instagram about keeping in touch and joining the conversation. So please do get in touch with us. Any concerns, worries, or lovely bits you want to share about your spa experiences as a spa therapist, please get in touch.
We're here for you. We're your big sisters.
We are. Love to you all, and we'll
Thank
see
you.
you next time.
Bye.
Bye.